Dragon Age Inquisition was rated M for mature by the ESRB and contains blood, intense violence, nudity, sexual content, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, my name is Amaronith and I play games for the internet, and today we're playing Dragon Age Inquisition. We sealed the breach, but at what cost? A very terrible one, but in the meantime, it's time for another Codex Entry reading. Starting with characters. Cole. His name is Cole. He's not that old, perhaps 20 years, no more. He has blonde hair that hangs in front of his eyes. He wears dirty leathers, perhaps the only clothes he owns. He was there when you found Rhys in the Templar crypt, but you couldn't see him. Nobody can, and those who do forget him, just like you are right now. Remember the dream. A letter, allegedly written by former Knight Captain Evangeline de Brassard, found in the spire in the aftermath of the Mage Uprising. Crafting materials. Deep mushroom. Deep mushroom refers to the entire group of fungi that grows underground in caves in many parts of the Dwarven Deep Roads. Collection can be a dangerous task, as the Deep Roads are often infested with darkspawn. Because of this, Dwarven merchants often recruit casteless hirelings for the job and pay them a meager percentage of what they earn selling the mushrooms to surfacers. The most common varieties used in the herbalist's trade are the blightcap, ghoul's mushroom, and brimstone mushroom, almost all of which tend to carry the darkspawn's corruption. While they cannot transmit the disease, this trait often makes them quite poisonous. Deep mushrooms should only be handled by experienced herbalists and should never be consumed without first being adequately cleaned and prepared. Careless consumption has been known to cause insanity, severe abdominal cramping, and even death. An excerpt from the Botanical Compendium by Ina Sarancia, botanist. Creatures. Archers. Updated. To fight an enemy with a bow or crossbow is simple, although not always easy. A guard with a crossbow must crank his weapon after each shot. If there is only one such enemy, seek cover and give him cause to waste his shot, then close upon him before he may fire again. If there are many, close to their flanks so that you face one guard directly, using him as a second shield, and no other guard has a clean shot at your unprotected back. Do not move to the middle of their ranks and rely upon them hesitating to risk hitting one another. A soldier with a short bow is a little more dangerous. Attack him as you would an enemy with a crossbow, but accept that he will likely fire again. Approach with your shield up, even if you must sacrifice speed. Few soldiers are true masters of the bow. Those who do not fumble their draw in fear will fire a shot quickly, so it is more likely to glance off your armor or shield than punch through. Few soldiers have the skill or strength to make good use of a longbow. Respect those who do. Against such an enemy, cover is the only defense. Move quickly across his field of vision, forcing him to compensate for your movement. Do not charge directly unless your allies can distract him. A fully drawn longbow can drive an arrow through a chevalier's plate at 100 yards. A fight between an archer and a chevalier is a test of cunning versus patience. We are too often patient, heavily armored as we are, and faced with lightly armored foes who would harass us. While archers frustrate me as they do most chevaliers, it is good that we fight them, so we remember how to be cunning, how to break an opponent's patience. An excerpt from A Meditation Upon the Use of Blades by Swordmaster, and I asked someone how this name would be pronounced. I've been pronouncing it wrong, and I apologize. By Swordmaster Magisterium. Required reading at the Académie des Chevaliers. Researched, damage against humanoids increased. Behemoth. We could have held off a battering ram, but the Behemoth, it took the gate off at the hinges. Then it screamed, not a roar or a growl, a scream, all rage and pain. As I drew my blade, all I could think was, there's a Templar in there. Somewhere in that thing was a brother or sister of the Order. Every fiber of my soul was crying out to them. But whoever it might have been, whoever's son or daughter, they were lost to us, swallowed by corruption and lies. I helped the only way I could, the only way any of us can. We must end their suffering, and, Maker willing, we must try to remember them as they were. From the reports of Knight Captain Vetter, Tactical Considerations for the Inquisition. Horror. Presley, whatever you do, don't get too close to those red Templars with giant lumps on their backs. They can spit lyrium. You can actually see it growing before they fling it at you from their palms. One hit Henley in the face. He'd have a massive scars if I hadn't been there to heal the wounds as we plucked the stuff out. We started to beat it down with some spells, and the air went sour. I felt sick, like you do when you're around too much raw lyrium. Lyra almost passed out. I grabbed her and ran. With luck, the thing found better prey than us. I never loved the Templars, but seeing them mutilated with lyrium doesn't give me any cheer. I don't understand why they inflict this on themselves. Jana. Prowler. When faced directly, an opponent wearing only light armor wielding only short blades is little challenge to a trained chevalier. However, not all fights are duels. If you assume that your enemy shares your values, you will die. The only rule most warriors agree upon is that it is better not to die, and a Grey Warden or an Emperor's bodyguard may contest even that accepted wisdom. A skirmisher will strike by surprise, relying upon allies to draw your attention. In a great battle with many troops on each side, you must assume that the enemy has such skirmishers in its ranks. When fighting in formation, you have no excuse to break your guard and pursue a perceived advantage. Doing so will leave you or those depending on you unguarded. When fighting alone, you must avoid strikes that would weaken your guard. Once you know such an enemy opposes you, be vigilant and remember that you wear more armor than he does. He will hide. Do not enter the shadows, where he is strongest, to pursue him. He will harass you at range. Do not take the bait he offers. A chevalier deserves a better death than a poisoned dagger in his unprotected armpit, and such is the death of those who grow impatient while chasing enemies they deem beneath their honor. Be calm, be methodical, and wait for your opponent to yield to the fear of your blade and shield. When he does, he will convince himself that he can attack you directly, that his blades are fast enough to slip past your shield. Then he will move, and then you may kill him. An excerpt from A Meditation Upon the Use of Blades by Swordmaster Magisterium. Required reading at the Académie des Chevaliers. Red Templar Archers. Take aim. Red lyrium isn't the weak stuff they feed you all your life. The song is deeper. It's got a will of its own. Tame it, and you will do things the Chantry instructors never dreamed of. Listen, focus on the arrow in your hand. Pour power into it when it leaves the bow. That strength can fly across a battlefield and punch a hole through the thickest armor. Soon you won't need to stop to hear it. Practice, and the song will always be in your blood. And fire. Red Templar Archer instructing new recruits starting to take Red Lyrium. Red Templar Foot Soldier. Do you remember when I was tracking some mages hiding in the mountains? I found those Red Templar heretics attacking them. The Templars turned on me as well. The soldiers looked like normal men and women, but they rained down blows so hard it numbed my arm through my shield. It took me 3 minutes to kill just one, and he only stopped when I cut off his head. That's when I saw their leader, a huge misshapen knight. He made a gesture, and a streak of light streamed from him into one of the soldiers. Red Lyrium burst through the soldier's back. He changed into some kind of thing that made the mages all sick. I still don't know how he survived. These mages are children and frightened scholars, hiding from the war after their circles fell. Still, if one of them wasn't a healer, I'd have lost my sword arm. A letter from a Templar Knight who left the order to her husband. Red Templar Guardsman. When I saw Templars marching up the road, my heart was glad. I asked if they'd come to stop the rebel mages who burned down the farms, but one growled it was none of our business. That was when I noticed his eyes were red, not like he'd had a long night at the inn, but really, truly red. Verney announced these were the band's lands, and it was his business who was in them. The Templar bastard cut him down without a word. 12 of us against 3 of them, and we never got a strike past their shields. They're stronger than any man I've known. The Templars swung full tower shields of metal like they weighed nothing. We had to run. Tell the band to seal the castle gates against any visiting Templars. Letter from a guardsman employed by Ban Harkwald. Red Templar Knight. At first, I was only suspicious. Some of my brothers and sisters were acting strangely, spending time in the company of those who only days earlier we hadn't even given a passing glance. I would enter a room, and they would all be sitting together, talking in hushed whispers, and then they would stop altogether. I felt my intrusion keenly, and withdrew, wondering how it was that I was not included in this group. Was there dissension in the Templar ranks? Were they speaking of rebellion against the Seekers of Truth? I could not fathom it, so I kept my peace. Then I saw the lyrium vials Sir Randall kept in his gear. It was accidental, as he had them wrapped in dark cloth and immediately covered them when I entered his quarters. But I did. They were red, not blue. Again, I held my tongue. Now I wish I had not. More and more of my fellow Templars stopped talking when I walk into rooms. There's little talk of continuing our hunt for the rebel mages. There is little talk of anything at all. I see the red vials they wear openly around their necks, no longer hidden. They are stronger than the rest of us, and it suddenly seems as if proper blue lyrium has become rare. Shortages, they tell me. I saw Sir Randall this morning. His eyes were red. For the first time, I am wondering if I should abandon my post and flee the order for good. From the Journal of Sir Caitlin of the Order of the Templars. 941 Dragon. Red Templars. The Red Templars are exactly what they sound like. They are Templars who have been fed red lyrium, and the results are precisely what happened to Meredith in Kirkwall. It improves their powers, grants new ones, and increases their strength beyond what a human body should bear. Over time, red lyrium will turn them into beasts. Crystals will grow inside their bodies, even, I am told, sprouting through their heads. In the end, the Red Templars will be lost, mind and soul, to roaring madness. Did the Chantry push our Templars too far? Or was this break inevitable? Maker help us. I pray it was not us who drove our good knights into becoming monsters. Mother Celerus of the Grand Cathedral in a letter to a friend. Wraith, updated. Like wisps, wraiths are sometimes thought to be the remains of spirits or demons that have been destroyed. They cannot shape the fate around themselves, nor are they capable of mimicking forms they see in the minds of dreamers, as many weaker spirits do. Instead, they are the scavengers of the fade, dwelling in the shadows of stronger beings, feeding on scraps of thought and emotion. From Beyond the Veil, Spirits and Demons by Enchanter Mirdramel. Researched, damage against demons increased. Groups. Tevinter Society. To those outside of the Tevinter Imperium, it is easy to imagine a society filled with mages and elven slaves and little else. In truth, there are 3 different Tevinters, each of them a world completely separated from the others. There are the mages, the land's nobility, completely obsessed with competing for supremacy with each other, almost to the exclusion of paying any heed to the nation's enemies, such as the Canari. The well-bred Altus sneer at the Latins, who in turn sneer at the Praetari. They vie for dominance in the Magisterium, where factions shift and flow on a daily basis with deadly consequences, requiring every family to put on a veneer of perfect citizenship or face scandal and censure. Then there are the so-called Soparati, the Sleepers. These are the non-magical citizens who vastly outnumber the mages, yet are beholden to their whims. Many are resentful of this status, plotting in secret even as they secretly hope their children will possess magical talent. An enticing lure, since the talent could conceivably show up in anyone, even a slave. It would be easy to forget that Tevinter possesses a massive class of publicans, the civil servants and leaders of the legionnaires. It has an enormous merchant class, enough teeming poor to drown any other nation in Thedas, and the shadowy thieves called Presumptor, who are practically treated with respect. And then there are the slaves. One would think they, at least, see each other as equals, but it is not so. The divide between the freed liberati, those who act as personal servants to the magisters, those who work on farms and factories, and the servus publicus, who do all the tasks proper citizens will not. It is all but insurmountable, but perhaps an emulation of those who own them. Imperial slaves will connive and scheme to try anyhow. Outsiders might see it as futile, but to Tevinter citizens, their nation's social classes are the most mutable and rewarding of merit in all of Thedas. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. The Avvars. Driven across the frostbacks in ancient times, the Alamari tribesmen split into 3 groups. One settled the Ferelden Valley, one was pushed into the Kokari wilds, and the last returned to the mountains. Modern Fereldans bear little resemblance to their Alamari ancestors, and the chastened remember few of their traditions, but the Avvar have changed little throughout the ages. Like the chastened, the Avvar are not a united people. Each tribe fends for itself and is beholden only to its thane. They still follow their own gods, Korth the Mountain Father, Hakon Winter's Breath, the Lady of the Skies, as well as dozens of animal gods never named to outsiders. Nothing lasts in the mountains. Wind and rain eventually eat away the strongest holds. Valleys that were arable one generation are locked in year-round ice the next. Game is constantly on the move. Even among themselves, the Avvar make no absolute promises. They wed by a tradition in which the groom struggles to untie a tightly knotted rope, while the bride sings a hymn to one of the gods. However many knots he has undone by the time her song ends is the number of years she will spend with him. Lowlanders often forget that there is no such thing as a permanent alliance in the Frostbacks. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Imperial Chantry. There are those who would tell you that the Chantry is the same everywhere as it is here, that the divine in Val Royeaux reigns supreme in the eyes of the Maker, and that this fact is unquestioned throughout Thedas. Do not believe it. The Maker's second commandment, magic must serve man, not rule over him, never held the same meaning within the ancient Tevinter Imperium as it did elsewhere. The Chantry there interpreted the rule as meaning that mages should never control the minds of other men, and that otherwise their magic should benefit the rulers of men as much as possible. When the clerics of Tevinter altered the chant of light to reflect this interpretation of the commandment, the divine in Val Royeaux ordered the clerics to revert to the original chant. They refused, claiming corruption within Val Royeaux, an argument that grew until, in 487 Towers, the Chantry in Tevinter elected its own legitimate and uncorrupted divine, Valhale, who was not only male, but also happened to be one of the most prominent members of the Tevinter Circle of Magi. This black divine was reviled outside of Tevinter, his existence an offense to the Chantry in Val Royeaux. After 4 exalted marches to dislodge these rebels, all that the Chantry in Val Royeaux accomplished was to cement the separation. While most aspects of the Imperial Chantry's teachings are the same, prohibitions against magic have been weakened, and male priests have become more prevalent. The Circle of Magi today rules Tevinter directly, ever since Archon Nomoran was elected in 734 Storm, directly from the ranks of the enchanters, to great applause from the public. He dispensed with the old rules forbidding mages from taking part in politics, and within an age, the true rulers within the various imperial houses, the mages, took their places openly within the government. The imperial divine is now always drawn from the ranks of the first enchanters, and operates as divine and grand enchanter both. This is utter heresy to any member of the Chantry outside of Tevinter, a return to the days of the Magisters, which brought the blights down upon us. But it exists, and even though we have left the Tevinter Imperium to the mercies of the dread Canary, still they have endured. Further confrontation between the Black Divine and our so-called White Divine is inevitable. From Edicts of the Black Divine by Father David of Canaris, 811 Blessed. The Magisterium. There is a mistaken impression outside the Tevinter Imperium that a magister is simply a mage, and the mere act of being a mage is all that is required to be among the ruling class. A misperception aided, no doubt, by some Tevinter mages claiming the title outside their homeland to take advantage of its reputation. In truth, being a magister requires one hold a seat in the Magisterium, the upper house of the Imperial Senate. This is the body that makes laws, and which chooses the new Archon if there is no approved heir. The Senate's lower house, the Publicanium, consists of elected officials, but it has no true power and is considered a bureaucratic body. Magisters, meanwhile, come from the ranks of the Circle of Magi and the Imperial Chantry, but most hold their seats by virtue of an Archon having granted it to their family long ago. It is not technically required for a magister to be a mage. Indeed, after the transfiguration that saw the old gods abandoned and Andrastianism embraced, most were not. Since the Tower's age, however, non-mages in the Magisterium have slowly been weeded out. A true magister is thus a figure of real power in Tevinter. All other mages serve at their pleasure, and any mage not of proper lineage has no influence outside of that which personal wealth and talent provide. From The Ancient North by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. History. In your heart shall burn. Then the Maker said, to you, my second-born, I grant this gift. In your heart shall burn an unquenchable flame, all-consuming and never satisfied. From the fade I crafted you, and to the fade you shall return, each night in dreams, that you may always remember me. Canticle of Threnodies, 5-7. In passages 1 through 6, the first children wanted for nothing. Freed from need, they could only praise, but it was hollow, without cost. We, in all the physical, were created immutable. That our works would require struggle, a wonder created of wood and stone, proves more intent than any wish of the fade. Here, in the gentlest verses of the chant, we see how great his gift and how stern his punishment. To inspire he gave us dreams such that we would strive to make this limited world reflect his glory. Some look upon that knightly memory and feel only desire, as though owed his splendor. We, the second children, were meant to master the wants and wanes of emotion and childish pursuits, to honor at a distance and move ever forward. We failed in this, and the weakest of us did act as petulant infants, clawing back into his sight, because we could not master our desire, because we acted on pitiful instinct, because we dared to look upon our Maker to fulfill our need and not his. He is lost to us. But he is merciful while stern, and we remember what we have lost. His second children can learn, grow, and change. If we cannot, then we are no better and no worse than his first children. From The Word and the Challenge of the Chant by Revered Mother Havara. Letters and Notes. A letter from the Carta. We hired your mercenary organization to facilitate this business venture, not add complications. In order for the Carta to extract the product without attracting undue attention, the area must be free from observation. If the fighting between the apostate mages and the renegade Templars is insufficient, your efforts were to dissuade refugees from exploring the area and interfering with our operation. We are meeting at our primary base of operation in Velamar to determine the next course of action. At your earliest convenience, send representatives to the location marked to explain the situation and obtain new instructions. An unsigned letter found in a remote mountain villa. An unsigned letter. Whoever the Red Templars are, they have become very interested in the area. Their appearance suggests a familiarity with the product that cannot be coincidence. Focus efforts on eliminating them, ideally in such a way as to place blame on the growing Inquisition forces in the area. If we can get the two groups to kill each other, that should be less work for all of us. Apostate Widris's Journal. This thick journal is half undecipherable. The parts that can be read are splattered with ink, as if the author had written them in a hurry. There were years of notes in that book. Years! Who could have taken it? Or deciphered it? Did someone follow me from the circle? I bet it was Wernham or Clarice. They always were jealous little busybodies. If they saw what I've done, the demons I've harnessed, they'd be green with envy. Who's afraid of spirits now, you simpering ewes? But I must have my book back. I will write down the cipher again before I forget. Again. These demons are clever. I can't have them demanding a price for decrypting my own notes. The concoctions I can make with the plants here in safe amounts will open my mind to vistas past the fade. The demons hint it is beyond me, because they wish to undermine me. It is so clear. It's so very clear. Gardner Diary. Property of Ira Gardner is written in spidery handwriting on this collection of homemade recipes and remedies. The last entry reads, "First sign of the plague is coughing and going pale, like blood's run out of your skin. Alfred soothes the cough, but doesn't cool the next day's fever. That's where the spindleweed helps. The ones I planted by the old shed came in quick. They seem to like where the soil's dry. I'll try making an ointment with it tomorrow." Places. Grand Forest Villa. That the lush and beautiful Grand Forest Villa is so far from Redcliffe Castle seems odd, only until one learns the history behind its construction. More than an age before the Orlesian occupation of Ferelden, Jarl Jansen Guerin ordered its construction to serve as comfortable living quarters for his close friend, famed singer and swordsman Sir Coram the Bard. Arlessa Marguerite, Jason's wife, evidently understood and supported her husband's relationship with Coram, only stipulating that the bard not live at the castle to avoid any public scandal. Jarl Jansen's Ride was a popular tavern song for many years, jokingly honoring the Jarl's attempts to return from the villa before the sun rose. Sir Coram lived happily there until his death in bed at the age of 90, several years after the death of Jarl Jansen himself. The aged Arlessa Marguerite ordered Coram's body burned with full honors in a hunting cloak that belonged to the Jarl. After Sir Coram's death, the villa was used by the Jarl's family for guests and as a summer home for the younger family members. It was abandoned during the chaos of the Fifth Blight. Excerpt from Living Redcliffe by Sister Dorcas Guerin. Oh, that's so sweet. Rivain. Nowhere in my travels, not in the heart of the Imperium nor the streets of Orzammar, have I felt so much an outsider as in Rivain. The chant of light never truly reached the ears of these people. The years they spent under the thumb of the Qunari left most of the country zealous followers of the Qun, but resistance to the chant goes deeper than a Qunari war. The Rivaini refuse to be parted from their seers, wise women who are in fact hedge mages, communicating with spirits and actually allowing themselves to become possessed. The Chantry prohibition against such magical practices violates millennia of local tradition. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. Tales. Before Andrastianism, Forgotten Faiths. The teachings of the Andrastian Chantry have been part of Theodosian lives for over 800 years. The Chantry guides us and teaches us. We are made humble in the knowledge that we have sinned, and yet we are inspired and given hope through Andraste's story and her song. But Andraste died almost 200 years before her Emperor Cordelius Dracon established the Chantry and spread the chant of light. In those terrible years, the Dosians were lost. Crying for salvation, they took to anyone and anything they hoped could give them the answers they so desperately sought. Some returned to well-known faiths like the Tevinter Imperium's cult of the old gods, which we hold accountable for the curse of the blight and the darkspawn. But others found their own paths, following false prophets and making false gods out of men. Many of these religions have disappeared, dying out with their adherents, like the Daughters of Song or the Empty Ones. Others, like the Blades of Hessarian, may still lurk in the hidden corners of our world. This book aims to remember them, so that we may find compassion for those who lived in those dark times, and also for they who even now are lost, and turn to shadow, trying to find light. From Before Andrastianism, The Forgotten Faiths, by Sister Rodwin of Tantervale. Bottles of Thedas, updated. Garbolg's Backcountry Reserve, likely dropped to avoid seizure by authorities or because of seizure due to drinking it. Garbolg only brewed from 874 to 892 blessed, killed when the vapors in his beard spontaneously combusted. Butterbile, 784. A hard liquor that is not so much served as it is brandished. Coarse and indifferent, it is to your taste or it is not. The failing is yours if you cannot raise or lower to the challenge of a distiller told not to. Vint 9 Rowan's Rose. delicate to the nose, a comfort to the tongue, and, strangely, a half-remembered whisper to the ears. It is described as, and inspires, a wistful spirit, a Vinter's opus. Carnal, 869 blessed. An Orlesian liqueur for the daring, or for those who wish to seem so, said to enhance sensation, and at the bottom an erotically carved peach pit. The design is plain, but the bottler assures that the act of carving was scandalous. Constellation Draconis. Called High Dragon in common parlance, the constellation Draconis is always depicted by a dragon in flight. Recently, it has come into question whether this was the case in the ancient Imperium. Most Tevinter dragon imagery was reserved for the old gods, so why would they dedicate a constellation to dragons in general when specific dragons were held in such reverence? This speculation is fueled by older drawings showing Draconis as more serpentine in appearance, perhaps depicting a sea creature or an unknown eighth old god that was stricken from historical record. From a study of Thedosian astronomy by Sister Orin Petrarchius. Saga of Tyrdda Brightaxe, Avvar Mother, complete. First stanza. Tell the tale of Tyrdda Brightaxe, mountain maker, spirit's bride, free her people, forged in fastness, made in mountains hardy hide. Wise in wisdom, calm in counsel, great in gifts are grateful guests, sacrifice she did to spirits, took their teachings, followed quests. Bright her axe on breaking crystal, stirred to flame when temper flies, gifted from her leaf-eared lover, laughing lady of the skies. Bested blades of all who tried, maidens spurning all requests. Tyrdda Brightaxe, dreamer's eyes, Avvar mother of her making. Second stanza. Thelm gold-handed, fingers greasy, jeweled rings with glitter shone, took in tribes in time of trouble, fed them fat to weaken bone. Warriors great and great in number, sun-kissed swords to fight his wars, drake-scaled shirts their bodies covered, heart-wine stained the salty shores. Told his tribes a tale of treasure, over sea to north it gleamed, whispered words to drive the droves to golden city where he dreamed. Counselled quick in dreams alone, voices wiser men ignores, pushed the tribes until they screamed, heed the dreams and cross the waking. Third stanza. Honey-tongued was Thelm to Tyrdda, gifts of gold and his steel to start, wanted Tyrdda's men for warriors, stolen tribe from stolen heart. Cold her tribe the gold hand counselled, lean from winter's wind-knife chill, be my bride and cross the waking, eat the gilded city's fill. Tyrdda Brightaxe, fraught with fury, crystal axe head stirred to blaze, heeded well her leaf-eared lover, unabashed by lustful gaze. None shall break my tribe apart, not with demon words that kill. Fear my fury's fiery rays, dream words lie, their thirst unslaking. Fourth stanza. Tyrdda Brightaxe, Thelm gold-handed, battle brought with blade and axe, Thelm in mail and shield of silver, shining sheen to turn attacks. Blade of dragon bone now blooded, warrior throats wrung raw with cheers. Tyrdda stands, her bright axe blazing, legs still weeping battle tears. Bright the axe of leaf-eared lover, laughing lady of the skies. Fire flares as Thelm gold-handed, honey-tongue repeats his lies. North to warmth and golden cities, whispers speak in dreamers' ears. Silver scorched the lyre flies, on ravens' beaks, to dream unwaking. Fifth stanza. Tyrdda Brightaxe, bold and bloodied, took her tribe from placid plains, tribes with blades by farming blunted, chased and fought their parting pains. To the mountains shorn of shelter, snow-slicked peaks gave wind its bite. found a cave to save her tribe, but dragonfire lit the night. Beast no blade could break came roaring, mountains slipped their winter gown. Tyrdda shouts to leaf-eared lover, you I choose above a crown. Lightning split the spitting rains, sundered over prideful heights. Dragon fell and rebel down, crashed and crushed in earth's mad shaking. 6th stanza. Tyrdda Brightaxe, proud her tribe, free from fallow fat below, built in battle, fed on fighting, strong from struggle did they grow. Deep in caves the stone men tribe, Hendir's warriors stout and strong. Met the tribe with axes ready, armor gleaming, sword blades long. Spoke with Tyrdda, did her lover, gentle whispers soft she made. Dwarven hearts were sundered simple, still with honor thus she bade. Let the tribe the dwarf men know, in their caves where they belong, not with battle but with trade, Hendir's dwarves give peace unbreaking. 7th stanza. Tyrdda Brightaxe, dwarf friend chieftain, with her leaf-eared lover lay. Woke she did to love-sweat morning, lover gone and light of day. Dream words whispered, spoken soft, still the silence crushed and crashing. Dead her tribe, unless a child could keep her line in warrior fashion. Avvar, so named the lover, called our journey yours and mine. One day child of Tyrdda's blood, Morriganen in strength must shine. Lover's whispers to obey, Hendir, dwarf prince, friend in passion, babe produced to serve the line, the Avvar tribe, her name are taking. 8th stanza. Tyrdda Brightaxe, Avvar chieftain, strong her tribe with dwarven blade, battles brought to men and demons, won with wisdom, fire, and blade. Then did Tyrdda look to Hendir, dwarf prince friend, children giver, took her freedom, Hendir glad, wished her what he could not give her, chose her child to stand as chieftain, after all last wrongs were righted, gifted goods of worldly want, left her tribe no more benighted. Skyward one last trek she made, to her lover, dream delivered, raven-feathered, reunited, hearts both whole, now neither aching. The Daughters of Song. Wine, music, poetry, and the wanton and frenzied indulgence of carnal fancies, these things characterized the hedonistic cult known as the Daughters of Song. Calling them an order of the faithful lends them a legitimacy they do not deserve. The daughters and sons, though they saw themselves also as daughters, celebrated Andraste's holy union with the Maker in almost every way imaginable. And it was only the holy union they venerated. Andraste's life, her war, her teachings, and her sacrifice were blithely ignored. At its height, the Daughters of Song numbered in the thousands. They maintained a stronghold in a village called Virelay, in the fields of Gislain. Virelay saw a yearly event during which the Daughters of Song paraded craven images of the Maker's glory through the square. The Daughters of Song were wiped out by the righteous forces of Emperor Dracon during his campaign to unite all of Orlais. When the Emperor's forces sacked the village, the daughters would not arm themselves and were either killed or captured. The village was destroyed, and the cult never recovered. From Before Andrastianism, The Forgotten Faiths, by Sister Rondwyn of Tentervale. The Empty Ones. The Empty Ones were a small and short-lived cult based in Navarra, and known for worshipping the Blight and, by extension, the Darkspawn. Some confuse the Empty Ones with followers of Tevinter's old gods, a reasonable mistake since archdemons are said to be tainted old gods. However, it is clear from the histories that the Empty Ones did not worship Demat and his ilk, but the Blight itself. Following Andraste's death, many of her followers fell into a deep despair. They believed that the prophet's betrayal and execution marked the beginning of the end of the world, and that the Maker's wrath would soon be upon them. The most fatalistic of them all gathered together to prepare for their doom. They called themselves the Empty Ones, for they saw themselves as worthless husks, ready to be swept away by the Maker's hand. It is unknown what passed then, but over time the Empty Ones grew to believe that the Blight was to be the tool by which the Maker would end all creation. And all of creation. They preached that it would come from the void, a place of nothing, and that returning to the void was something to be celebrated, because it meant an end to all pain and suffering. Some mistakenly take this to mean that the Empty Ones worshipped evil, but that is an oversimplification. The Empty Ones believed the world to be beyond redemption, and that it was the Maker's will that it be destroyed completely. There are tales of Empty Ones scouring the deep roads, searching for Darkspawn, whom they saw as the Blight's prophets, in order to assist them in bringing about the next Blight. Predictably, the beginning of the second Blight saw the end of the Empty Ones. The entire cult made its way to the Anderfels, where they stood in the path of the encroaching Darkspawn and, singing in praise of the oblivion that was to overtake them, were consumed. From Before Andrastianism, The Forgotten Faiths, by Sister Rondwyn of Tentervale. The Lost City of Barindur. On the 15th day of my journey across the Tevinter Imperium, our caravan reached a great rolling plain. Swaying grass hid flocks of birds so vast that when they took flight, their numbers blocked the sun. This, our guide informed us, was the great city of Barindur, wonder of the ancient world, famed for its fountains, which were said to grant eternal youth. Legend has it that during the celebration of the winter solstice, Carnatus, High King of Barindur, turned away an envoy from the High Priest of Dumat. The priest called upon his god to punish Carnatus for the offense. And the dragon god of silence answered him. Months passed. The kingdom of Barindur fell silent. In distant Minrathous, the priests of Razikale dreamed of dark omens. Their oracles declared that a dire fate had befallen King Carnatus. Finally, the fearful High King of Minrathous sent a company of soldiers to Barindur. The men reported that the road which led across the northern plains ended abruptly. They walked for leagues over barren, empty rock where the kingdom of Barindur had once been, all of it swept from the face of the world by the hand of a god. Not a single stone of Barindur remains, and nothing of the once powerful city has ever been found. A secret now that can never be told. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. And that is that. Whew. Okay. And on that note, I will see you next time where we continue in the devastating aftermath of what happened after we sealed the breach. However, in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.